So our final session. So da iawn chi, but we are very excited to welcome a very special guest who needs no introduction, so I might as well just cut to the chase. Please welcome to the stage the BBC Director-General Tim Davie. Tim, coming up.
Thank you.
Now, I think you're supposed to be on the further one.
Yeah.
Those
Brilliant.
mics are there just in case, but we've got the Britney ones.
Lovely.
Yeah, it's very jazzy.
The Madonna mic, as I call it, yeah.
So you go Madonna, do you? I've been going Britney.
Oh, always Madonna on this mic. Yeah.
Very good. Well, Tim, thank you very much for being with us. It's been a fascinating couple of days here. People have been from all sorts of walks of the industry, from the media as we know it, from BBC types and ITV types to YouTube types and TikTok and everything in between.
Great.
So I guess the easy, obvious place to start is, where's your head at the moment in terms of how things are looking? How are you feeling about the industry as it currently stands? 'Cause it's been a mixed picture here, some good, some bad.
He's answering my questions for me.
Yeah,
It's
sorry.
great. Well, it's fantastic to
I've learned loads of the last 2 days, see, Tim. I can just talk if you want.
Well, it is a mixed picture. And it's a fascinating, demanding, wonderful time. But it's mixed. On the kind of positive side of the ledger, if you look at it from my point of view, and I'm talking all the time, yakking away about, I think there's a couple of things. One is we've never been more needed. I can't think of a time when public service media, plus also the storytelling that's created in this room, is more needed. And we talked about the roles of the BBC. You know, if I get stopped in the pub on a Friday night, I kind of stagger into this pub in my village in Oxfordshire.
Yeah. And
they go, what's the point of the BBC anyway? You go, you know, there are three really clear roles. Obviously, there's inform, educate, entertain, our guiding light. But, you know, I think there's a pursuing truth with no agenda. I mean, boy, is that needed now, with disinformation, all the things that are going. And I don't just mean that in news terms. I mean in natural history. I mean documentary. I mean some of the things that we've seen coming out of Wales in terms of some of the investigative programming. Then the second thing is obviously ground-up programming. We're different. I like Netflix. I really admire Disney. They're fantastic companies, but they're not doing what we're doing. We have this amazing benefit of a license fee that everyone's in on. That means we can build up from the ground. We don't have to make everything purely on global efficiency. We can actually create homegrown content. That's blooming wonderful. And the last thing is, I think we're here to bring people together, not just try. I mean, you can have friends who have different political views, but we have so many businesses now globally that are, you know, essentially incentivized to weaponize the environment. So I'm feeling enthused about that. That's really critical. I'm also enthused that, you know, I think there's a real recognition that what is the UK, where can it play to its advantages, and the creative industries is one. If we can't get this right, this industry, 124 billion GVA, huge amounts of growth to be had. The demanding thing on all of this is, of course, that we're in a world where there's infinite choice, where money is hard to come by. The sector itself is under enormous pressure as many global players reduce volume, not the BBC, I'd say, importantly. So, look, it's really tough out there. So you're saying, well, there's Tim Davie making a nice speech about the sunlit uplands. I think on the ground it is pretty tough for many, and people in the room will know that. It's tough in terms of just getting the work, sorting out the market, you know, working out where you're going to make a profit. We had 46,000 applicants for 288 apprenticeships this year. Glug. Yeah? Which tells you something about the, you know, the opportunity there in terms of skills. But it's sobering, isn't it? It's really sobering. So, yeah, it's a mixed picture.
And then I suppose, because people listening to that will think, well, look, you know, Tim's out here advocating for the role of the BBC in a tricky world that's out there at the moment.
Indeed.
At the same time, so we've got to make this important stuff. There's less cash to make the important stuff, which you've already sort of alluded to.
There is, to a point. I mean, we're very, very lucky in public service broadcasting because, you know, we have a settlement that was done with the last government, which is 2 years flat and 4 years CPI. So, factually, the BBC is now being funded at inflation. I still believe that's not enough. Over time, we're going to have to think about how we fund things like the World Service and other things. I want more money. I think we are venture capital for the UK. I think we're short-sighted not to invest in, you know, what is, I think, something that actually brings more economic benefit. We did a lot of analysis on something like Doctor Who, you know, and the hundreds of millions that's created for the economy by bringing that in and all the things that come around it. You think what the investment we made in Central Square, and I've pushed money like it's going out of fashion out of the M25 because I can see it has the maximum catalytic effect, and that's really important. So I think the case is overwhelming, but the BBC specifically, the issue for us is we do have inflation now for the next few years. We'll see where that goes in the new. So that's good.
Yeah.
Okay. A lot of the cuts in the BBC are actually us just trying to cope with moving money around to where it's got most impact. So no one is more sentimental about, we could be making all these, we don't do much bad stuff, but we have to make a choice. If BBC Wales did not have a fantastic presence on the news app, if we didn't have, the iPlayer was, I'm very proud of this, the iPlayer was the fastest growing long-form video on demand platform, outgrew Netflix, outgrew Disney Plus in the UK last year. That does not happen without world-class engineers who are being attracted to come to the BBC for a lot less salary because they care. But we have to fund that. So we now have over 1,000 people building product. So how do you fund that and make enough programming and invest, all those things? So it's just about choices. I'm bullish about it, but it does mean you have to make some choices, and you can't make quite as many. And we're making thousands of hours of new, and there's some people in the room who are making fantastic programming. We're going to be incredibly broad. We're going to make many thousands of hours of programming for years to come. But you can't quite do everything. And you've got to be also a bit brutal and say, that just didn't deliver, or we're making too many podcasts in this area.
Yeah.
That's my job.
And on that brutality then, what would you think for people that you're listening who do make content, who are looking to make new shows for the BBC, looking to make an impact? What are the things that you would like people to be focusing on? What's the sort of stuff that you want to
Well, I think the first thing is we're lucky that we don't have to make an algorithm work in that way. So the first thing is never second guess us in terms of, they don't want risky time. Don't play it safe. Take a swing. Take a swing. We are much more up for, we want, you only get one life. Don't do average work. I think the industry goes, well, maybe the best way of dealing with it is to make sure we do another show that's based on this show and that show. I want new breakthrough work. So, look at what the BBC did in the BAFTAs. They sent me the list of 12 BAFTA.
Yeah. I know you're going to name all 12.
Yeah, and well, I could give it a good go. But Lost Boys and Fairies did 5. The investigation into the far right we did in the newsroom. Mr. Burton did well. I'm looking forward to that going on telly versus the cinema because I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
So, and that was a local production. All those things, that cocktail is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for work where you go, actually, some of those things I think wouldn't have been made by others. And we risk it and we go, we don't need to, we're not necessarily need a 60-part returner every time. We need different work. I would say, we do want ambition. I think the idea, just in my job, the kind of glorious torture of a BBC job. There's plenty of glorious torture. Is actually we don't want to be a market failure organisation. This is really important. So around the world, public service broadcasting is in real trouble. I would say it's in deep crisis. 74%. This is a whole different speech, but just bear with me. Is 74% of the world doesn't even have a free press. I've got a few hundred staff who can't even go home to their families in the nation they come from because they'll be arrested for doing free reporting. Yeah? It's sobering. Okay. So we have an incredible situation here where we are able to take a swing at it and do work that is truly, we have this license fee where we can go after it and we can take risks and we can do things that no one else can do. And I would just encourage people to do that, but then also not be thinking, get back to the point, about this idea it's just a market failure. It's not enough to come to me and go, well, it's good work, and here's your muesli, here's your greens, can you please eat them? See, public service broadcasting used to have a wonderful thing, which was overwhelming distribution dominance. So when I was growing up, we had 2 out of 4 TV channels. It's quite easy to get an audience if you've got that. Yeah? We didn't even have those video recorders initially, yeah? Once you lose distribution control, which is what many businesses have done, that's the story of the internet, then suddenly when you go home tonight, you've got infinite choice. When you get in a car, you've got more computing power, you know all this, than probably Cardiff had when I was growing up, in one car. And you've got pretty much every track that's made at your disposal in the car. In that, you have to be a bit brutal to say, maybe I'm going to make just slightly less, don't misread me, invest more money in those titles and make sure they've got the right punch. You've got to be a little bit brutal. That's the brutal thing,
yeah.
Or about cutting through and making work that makes a difference and never settling for average. And that is something we're forcing a bit.
And interesting, talking about that dominance of years gone past when it comes to distribution, we've heard a lot about prominence throughout the last couple of days.
Huge, yeah.
Where do you, because interesting, we were chatting to Jordan earlier, the manager of the Sidemen, and he was against the argument for public service prominence on new tech platforms. It's quite a big topic to throw in halfway through this conversation, but what do you feel about the
prominence on platforms, 12 minutes past 5 of an evening?
Yeah,
How
exactly.
long you got?
Yeah. It's either this or pointless, isn't it? So
let's go for prominence. Yeah. So I think prominence is we have decided we've got to make decisions about what kind of society we want. Sorry, it sounds really heavy, but what kind of society we want. This isn't an accident, the BBC. We chose, Reith and others said, we're not going to sell radios, we're going to make a public service broadcaster. And we have to make choices. Being part of a public service broadcaster is when you turn on your telly, we're on 101, 102. And my view is that is good for, we need to be held to account, boy are we held to account, but that is good for civic society. And it's important at a local level, it works at think about all the programs we're doing in terms of Wales, all the things we do. That is really important, that sits next to a Strictly, that sits next to a Mr. Burton. That is what we've decided. I think it's utterly appropriate that we have, and the public service broadcasters, if you want us to maintain that, it is an intervention. I happen to think it's a really clever intervention that also stimulates the commercial economy as well. But to do that, you have to have prominence. Because I do not want a situation where, bluntly, if you've got a smart TV when you go home, and the rail along the bottom is just for sale for the highest bidder. Yeah? So imagine you can just say, right, if you pay, we'll just get... You're no longer on that rail because you just got to drop off. Because if someone bids more money, I had many years ago. I mean, this is literally eons ago, 35. Yeah, I remember working in consumer goods. I'm glad I'm well out of it decades later. But you had those gondola inns, you know what I mean, that people bought, and it was literally. But that was where you got prominence, where you got volume. Now, my personal belief is we need to work with the platforms to make sure we do have prominence. Yeah. I think the government are in the right position with Ofcom, which says, if those platforms don't come to the party, then there is a threat of legislation. And we can control our destiny a bit as a society. So prominence should be given to public service broadcasting, and I think we should intervene if it's not delivered.
So you mean selling white goods wasn't a fun job then, Tim?
I had a moment in Connecticut where I was living in a white picket, you know the Meet the Parents, you know that kind of look of a house where you got the white picket fence. My lawn was the perfect Pantone reference, green. Everything was I had basketball hoop in the drive. Life was good. I came back with a 7-Up once that we were testing, and I gave it to my wife, and I said, what do you think of this? She said, I don't really care. And I looked at it and said, I kind of enjoyed the company, but I didn't care. Yeah. So I thought I've got to go and do something I care about. And once you like this room, once you do something you care about, you're never going back. And when I got to the BBC, I was just like, this is it. I care so deeply about it. So yeah, sorry, that's another... I'm drifting, it's therapy, but yeah, let's go through that. But no, I think that's really important. But I think you have to care about the BBC. I mean, we really care about the Welsh creative economy. I really care about what's happening in terms of, I was out looking at the shooting of Death Valley, which is now... Death Valley is a great example where good performance on iPlayer, a national hit, but Welsh roots, made by BBC Studios. Guess what? It's one of the best performing titles in Amazon in the States. So I don't subscribe it. I'm a little bit suspicious. Not suspicious. It may be the wrong word, but I think creatively, authenticity is everything. It's everything. And then that we will flow out globally and we'll make it work. But our primary objective is to serve our home market, make it work. A home market otherwise known as, every town in the UK, Wales, that's what we've got to serve. Yeah. And then I think that is the most successful global strategy, as opposed to let's try and do work that works globally. Get some authentic creative work, it'll be fine.
And do you think, using Death Valley as an example, do you feel like decision makers that often live in London at the moment, I live in London myself, but often people who live there, when you have conversations about working with people in Wales, do you feel like that they are listening, that there isn't a second guessing or like a level of just going to think twice about this because it's not being made by someone or from somewhere I feel like I can relate to? Because I know that sometimes people in the room will have had that experience where they feel like they've not necessarily been listened to because of where they're based.
Of course. I think the first thing, I think things are changing rapidly. 60% of our content, TV content, is made out of London. We're nearly at 50% on radio. I mean, there's network radio shows, in Central Square being made. So I've really challenged the notion of where the centre of the BBC is. There's also, we are pushing, and this is a journey, or it's a process. It's taking its time, but we are seeing power. You can be a network news editor over a whole area without being in London now. You'll have seen massive moves to Central Square, to Salford. So I think things are changing. I think the other thing, let's face it, any London-based arrogance is curiously misplaced in today's society. And one of the things we've got to do as the BBC and as an institution is, it is clear to me that this is a bigger kind of geopolitical question, which is how close people feel to institutions. Yeah, and trust of institution. I'm quite obsessed by kind of societal trust, and why people feel. They feel trust if someone they believe an institution is working in their interests, not in their own interests. So I don't like it when the BBC just defends blindly or whatever. We are working for the licence fee payer, for every house and flat in Aberystwyth. We are working for. Yeah, that's what we're there to do. We're there to serve them, and in some ways, we cannot serve them unless we don't have the sensibility of understanding them. We have people hiring people from but the apprentices are hired from all over the UK. They're based all over the UK. That is going to be the model for the BBC. And we're never going to fully, frankly, in my job, you're going to get a situation where you go, okay, there's only 3 or 4 people who could be the lead drama commissioner. I'd love them to be out of London, but I'm going to choose the best person. But broadly speaking, we are pushing out of London like it's going out of fashion, and your points are well taken. I think we continue to do that work. And it does, but I think we have moved, because we've moved quite a long way from London has to say how it goes. There'll be people in the room who say, well, he hasn't quite been on the ground and been in that meeting. I know that. We've got work to do.
Yeah. And that argument about the BBC being more across UK and not sort of as London-centric, is that part of the conversation you'll be having when it comes to the charter and things?
No doubt. But it comes from a point where we're not doing anyone I think there's been a little bit of, do us a favour, bring the BBC out of London as a favour. I don't see it that way. I see it as essential to delivering value for the licence fee. It's a very, very smart thing to do, just to be close to people. I mean, the biggest television programme every night in Britain by a mile, bigger than other soap operas or soap operas I could mention and others, is regional news. It's Welsh programming, right? That's the biggest every night on linear television by some distance now, apart from when a Strictly Night or a Celebrity Traitors will probably be big. But you get the idea. That connection is what and for most people, that is the BBC. That is the relationship. So yeah, I just think that's where we'll just be pushing that all the time. That will be a very important part of Charter. It's not just actually geographic, it's also how you think. Sorry, it's a bit socio-economic diversity. Yeah. Have we got different people? I mean, this sector, this is for all of us, by the way, is that, this sector has particularly, has got real challenges in attracting people from different socio-economic backgrounds. So you can often move geography, but you're not actually moving, you're still having a metropolitan office. Those things I'm really challenging, and we are changing in the BBC. We're changing how that works. I'm excited about it. I think we've got a really good set of leaders. And the other final thing I said on the kind of plus column for the BBC is our numbers are okay. 81% of people used the BBC last week, and in Wales that's even higher. Yeah? And that is, we're paranoid. We're healthily paranoid about that because we want to keep our scale. And it's about 94% every month. So you're not going to get a universal funding unless you're used pretty much universally. Yeah, so you feel pretty confident about that charter renewal because obviously it has big implications here. Public service broadcasting, very important in Wales. Obviously S4C is super important here as well. Of course, yeah.
You're feeling quite bullish about it?
Bullish might be. I think we have a good story. I think we should be confident about what we stand for, how we're being used by the public. I think we have challenges that the work is getting more expensive to deliver. The world is getting more polarised. Everyone has a view about the BBC. That's always been the case. But I think it is tougher around time spent. You've just got more competition for your time. There's no doubt that YouTube are on a march in terms of, if you talk about in the US, the person who's really making headway is YouTube. So you've got to be I think you've got to be on your toes at the BBC and not take anything for granted. But I am confident that we go in importantly into the Charter. The other thing, just very quickly, is that we're expecting a Green Paper by the end of the year. The Green Paper basically says, what do you think, everyone? What's your view? I would say my optimism is present, because when I'm talking to business leaders, when I'm talking to the industry, they're going, we need you more than ever. And that's not me being arrogant about it. It's just you sense that the BBC playing a fundamental and important part, a catalyst from a societal, economic, creative sector point of view. I think we need it more than ever. The issue is how well we're all serving the public through the BBC and making sure we're not just making a case for market failure because we're good people and we do good things, but the public there's a pull to it. The public want it. It's part of their lives. And my pitch for the Charter will all be about how we help families. Education, misinformation, great local drama, great local news. This is stuff I want you to take home and say, that's something I really want. I need that.
Yeah.
As opposed to we're kind of lecturing someone. That's not how I pitch the BBC.
Look, time is starting to run out now. There's a couple of things I really do want to touch upon, Tim. So just I suppose, I don't know, it's a tough question to answer briefly, but we've heard a little bit about the existential crisis when it comes to younger audiences, right?
Yeah.
60 to 24-year-olds especially. What do you think? Is there an answer for that? Are you still trying to figure that out?
Yeah, I think everyone. I think we're doing an enormous amount of work, and the numbers are not disastrous for us, by the way. I mean, we're still hitting, well over 60% 16 to 34s every week. We're the biggest UK brand by a mile with them. So don't discount. When the Premier League turns up, we get a lot of. When Celebrity Traitors will get a decent young audience. So I think the UK generally, by the way, has a PhD in self-flagellation. So we're quite good at that. So I think the cause is not lost. I think if we drop a season of Peaky Blinders or we have the right, but what we've had to do is, and we constantly do is, I don't want public service broadcasting to be trapped in format. Like the way you're going to get BBC News is a half an hour at 6:30, young man, and could you sit down in that chair and watch it? Now I look forward to the day when I can at 6:30 sit with maybe like my mum, I think they're serving in where she is a drambuie or something about 6 o'clock, and they watch the news. It's great, fantastic. But we have to make sure that we're the biggest news brand I think now on TikTok in the UK. We're the biggest globally on Insta. We've got to hustle on that. I also think we've got to be not arrogant about the topics we cover. So things like gaming, other things, and that's important. The other final thing is I think we've got to attract talent, and I don't just mean presenters. I mean talent across the board that brings people in that people trust. You've talked to them in this conference who come across into our world, and we're learning from them. They're coming and bringing their grammar into our world. It's not just being on YouTube; it's how you're on YouTube. And I think we're hustling and learning. I think it's quite difficult. It's a big change in DNA for the BBC because you've got to iterate. You've got to be very quick to say, that didn't work. Let's cut the time length. You can see us playing with news on iPlayer, shorter time lengths, opening up different formats. We've got to do that.
Yeah. My great-grandmother used to think that newsreaders could see her on the other side of the television. She used to dress up to watch the news.
I think I'm still getting letters from people who think the newsreaders are doing a lot more than that, messages through blinking and stuff. But anyway. Yeah. It's all very interesting culturally because I think this is a more interactive, participative age. And you want the authority of the BBC, but you also want it to be more porous, more contributory, if that's a word. You want people involved, and also we're more transparent. I think there's also some quite simplistic stuff said about so-called young people. I mean, who's one of our greatest hits with young people? Our 99-year-old natural history presenter. I don't think it's all about being hip. It's actually doing great work that's relevant. And I think there's a bit more confidence needed in this because I'm not a big fan of trying so hard that it shows you're trying.
Yeah.
Just do good work that makes the cut. It sounds simple, but anyway.
Talking about making cut, what are you watching? What are you watching from some other streamers? You think, I wish we made that.
Quite a lot of bits. I mean, Usual Suspect. I'll tend to. I mean, what was I watching last night? I watched actually the Newsreader last night, which was which was a nice little show. Blue Lights is knocking the doors off at the moment, so that's I hoovered that up. We've got the Ozzy Osbourne doc's worth watching, by the way. It's quite powerful. So I'm watching all kinds of things, and I'm watching a lot of news. I think the thing in other worlds, I think it is those landmark dramas, some of the FX dramas, whether more recently The Bear or whatever. You look at when that's on form, you go. These are shows that you could. Succession obviously is a Usual Suspect on that. But there's shows, those drama shows where you go, the narrative, the storytelling. For me, the definitive thing is when you just care so deeply about a character. You just really miss them when they're gone. And there's a few shows. There's landmark work that's impressive, but for me, you ask a personal question, it's where I really miss the character. And I go, okay, and there's shows like that. They may not be nice people, by the way, but I miss them. I miss their company. I think it's not always, and certainly in Succession, there's not many nice people, but I miss it.
Yeah. Also, Doctor Who Unleashed as well on BBC Three, which is presented by a fantastic, lovely young Welshman. I've heard that's quite good as well.
I heard he's not bad. Yeah, work to do, but very good. I heard. But good. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Celebrity Traitors is on tonight, of course, Tim. If you had to choose, if you were on the show and you had a choice of being a faithful or a traitor, what would you go for? If I was Claudia, imagine I'm Claudia, so picture.
Okay, it's a big leap. It's a big leap.
Yeah, it's a big leap. Picture the win. What would you do?
There's only one answer to it. I've got to be a faithful, but
really, Tim, you're amongst friends.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't go any. You see, when I'm front of house, there's a problem. Yeah. So my view is, I'll be very happy to have a nice whiskey, Penderyn, I think. Is that
done? Very good. Very
Penderyn,
well done.
That's my tipple after I've been racing in the Welsh Hills now and again in my running. I've had a few of those. So, and I've got a bottle at home, so I'll be toasting Doctor Who Unleashed and watching The Traitors. With my Welsh whiskey. Yeah. I would rather not get involved at all, but I'm happy. I think I've got to answer faithful, haven't I?
Yeah, so if Tim turns up in the Celebrity Faithful, something has gone wrong on The Traitors if Tim turns up. Well, Tim, listen, thank you very much for your candour.
And thank you. I would say thank you, everyone. I mean, we're in a the BBC's really. Last 28 seconds. Yeah. Thank you for the support. It's really important. It is a time to fight for public service broadcasting if you believe in it. The jeopardy is high, but I do think with the green paper and everything, also we're really up for feedback. The BBC, people. I was on the train today. I'm not sure I should tell this because I don't want more. My email's open to anyone. It's not filtered. People think I have some kind of team of people who answer my email for me, or they think it's AI. That's great. I write back. Sometimes people write to me late at night. I go, oh, fair point. Nice of you. I go, I'm furious that AI has generated. I go, it's not AI. It's me. And then they go, is AI generated? Anyway, I think if you got what I'm pompously saying is, give us the feedback. We're interested. If it's not working, but let's be constructive and really make it work. Get some great work made. That you can do the strategy charts all day long, but the real thing, what I want to be remembered for, is we unleashed creativity and we made great work. Like, when I look at the BAFTAs, and I may not get to all 12, but I get close. Not each individual one, but the titles. I do think that's what at the end of the day, that's what the public really go. They go, look, I love it. Whatever the noise, whatever the this and that going on, that drama made the cut and it moved me and it really was important. That factual entertainment programme, that's what we're about.
Yeah, great. Rwch croes yma, rwch llymgylchiadau di Tim am fod yma. Thank you very much, Tim. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.